So I am amazed how many sales managers and service managers are trying to fix their CSI by looking at the wrong data. Let me use an analogy. Imagine that a doctor is trying to fix a break in somebody's arm and they're looking at the wrong x-rays. Maybe an x-ray of their leg instead of their arm, and they're trying to reset their arm. Let me give you a different analogy. Imagine you sell a car and it comes with an EPA estimated fuel economy of 27 miles a gallon. And the customer takes it home because fuel economy is important to them. And as they drive, they're frustrated because they're only getting 17 miles to the gallon. So they bring the vehicle back to you and they complain and they say, I reset the fuel economy gauge and it is showing that I'm only getting 17 miles to the gallon and you advertise that I should be getting 27. In fact, just before, a couple miles before I came to the dealership, just to validate again that I'm getting the right data, I reset it again. What would you say to that customer? If you know anything about fuel economy gauges on a car, you realize that it needs a certain amount of time to give a proper perspective of what the true fuel economy is. Because if you set it a couple miles before the dealership and the person is starting and stopping, and it's only a few miles, it's not going to give you an accurate reading. But that's exactly what you sales managers and service managers are often doing when it comes to CSI. Let me explain. I was working with a store in regards to their CSI, and they were frustrated because in the near term, they said our CSI is low, we're right around group, and if we go below group, each of us gets penalized by 10% of our commissions. And they, in fear, they didn't want to see their CSI too low, and so they're working their score, they're looking at their score to avoid too low of a score. But here, so I tried to help focus them, and I said, let's look at what the trends have been. And if you look at the trends, this is what the store's trend has been over a 12-month period. The national average is the orange line, and the group average is the green line. Should this store be concerned about their CSI? I don't think so. So then why were they concerned here in the short term? Well, number one, they saw this slight dip. Now, if you only take this period of time, no different than the fuel gauge, it may look low. I mean, where are we? Especially if you're in the middle of the month and you're looking at the month-to-date score, you don't have all of the surveys in yet. And furthermore, you can't control the timing of those surveys. And if you get some low surveys early in the month, the score is going to start off really low. And as you add more surveys throughout the month, the score is going to go up. But that's insanity to look at just a few surveys early in the month without enough data and start extrapolating how you should feel about your CSI and whether we're giving customers a good experience. This is the kind of experience you're generally giving your customers. This is the way your people are behaving. These are the systems and processes and procedures that you're following. Why do we get schizophrenic in these short-term scenarios? I just don't get it. So here's my recommendation. Number one, ignore the month-to-date score. I don't know why the manufacturers keep publishing a month-to-date score. If you get lots of really good surveys early in the month, you're going to think you're a hero. When in fact, when others come in and you start to see the true trend, maybe you're not so good. Or vice versa, you get some low surveys early in the month and you're going to feel like a failure and you're going to try to make all kinds of changes. That's like trying to drive a car by looking straight in front of you and not looking for what the curves are up ahead. You can't keep correcting everything you're doing just in the short term. You've got to set your process and procedures and your behaviors in line with who you are, what your brand is, how you differentiate yourself in the marketplace, who you want to be and represent yourself to be. And then That's your formula. And then as you execute your formula, you will see how it is playing out in the marketplace. Same thing with a sports team. They bring their playbook, they execute their playbook, and the score will reflect. But they don't run their plays and everything based on looking at the scoreboard. Oh man, we're behind 14 points. I guess we should change everything that we're doing. Now, maybe at halftime we need to tweak some things, and maybe we haven't been as engaged, or maybe that type of strategy is not working against that particular team. But when it comes to customers and the hundreds of customers you're dealing with, you have to decide who are you, how are you going to execute your playbook, and be consistent with that. But ignore the month-to-date score. It's just going to drive you bananas, and it isn't relevant until the end of the month when you can compare it to other months beforehand. But again, I believe 30 days is too short of a period of time to truly assess your CSI. If all of the scores came in the same month that you deliver the service, great. That's interesting information, and that's helpful, and it's maybe more relevant. But you can't. You're going to have, if you do business near the end of the month, the survey might come in this month, it might come in next month, it might even come in the month after that, depending on how the individual manufacturer does things. But your people aren't changing from day to day dramatically. They're going to be doing what they're doing, and so ignore the month-to-day score. Secondly, in the near term, in the time when surveys are live, focus all of your attention on those individual customers to make their experience the absolute best that it can be. One by one, do the follow-up after service or after the sale. Say thank you for your business. Do you have any questions relative to the service or relative to the purchase? Keep it neutral. Don't try to steer them where they're going, and certainly don't try to coach them on how they should answer the survey. Sure, if you coach them, you might get a better score, but you're actually going to get lower retention of customers because they're not going to trust you. If you coach them on a survey, that's not authentic, and they're going to maybe tell you what you want to hear now, but they're going to take their business somewhere else in future. And the real game is about customer retention. It's not about getting a score. So focus near term on individual customers, make it the best experience they can be, and get as many surveys back as possible so you can get proper data. And then on the longer term, look at the trends. What are the trends? And interestingly, in this trend, you could be concerned that it's going down. The interesting thing is, look at the national and group averages also are going down. Something's happening. And what's interesting right now, we're in the middle of COVID. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Everybody is dipping. So should we be concerned about? We should be aware of it, but we should review on a one-by-one basis how we're looking after those customers. Yes, look at the process, look at the people, look at your systems, your environment as to clues as to how you fix it. But don't drive yourself insane by looking at a month-to-date score. And I get it. As I share this, most of you are not going to change anything that you're doing. And you're going to keep doing what you've been doing, and you're going to keep expecting different results. And that is insanity.